So it is time for Carving Up the Context. And as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. And on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, it is a happy day in Steelerland because the fans, myself included, we got our wish. Matt Canada, after 45 torturous games, has been fired by the Steelers. He was fired yesterday morning by Mike Tomlin, who said that he said in no other uncertain terms that the results for the Steelers offense were simply not there. And they asked him, one of the media members in Pittsburgh asked him, well, what's the goal? What do you hope to accomplish with this firing? And he said to score more points. I'm like, that is like the Tomlin is. Whenever Mike Tomlin does retire, and I hope that's not soon, but whenever he does retire, he's surely to goodness going to go into media. He is fantastic. He is the anti-Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick gives you no sound bites in the press conference other than a couple of mumbles and a half smile. Mike Tomlin is a soundbite machine. He's great for the media. He's great for shows like mine. So shout out to Coach Tomlin. He is the absolute best. But yeah, like it's blunt, it's straight, it's to the point, and it's true. Because the fact of the matter is, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and what they've done, not just this season, but since Mr. Canada took over to start the 2021 season, when remember, albeit he was older, but Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback at the time. Here are the Steelers' numbers. And again, it looks bad on film. I've heard Dan Orlovsky, I've heard coaches and players on ESPN and on other networks talk about how bad it is in Pittsburgh, how uncreative it is. But when you look at what it's producing, the offensive output for the Steelers, it's about as bad as you might imagine. It's since Canada took over. Okay, this is 45 games ago to start the 2021 season. The one playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs is included. The Steelers have scored 18.6 points per game, which is 28th in the league since Canada took over. They get only 310 yards per game, 28th in the league, 4.9 yards per play. That is 31st in the league. 75 offensive touchdowns. That is also 31st in the league. 40 20-point games in regulations. I want to repeat that. 2 30-point games in regulation for the Steelers since Mr. Canada took over as the OC. By the way, 0 30-point games this season, and no 400-yard games offensively. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am a new Steelers fan. This is my first year ever as a Steelers fan, and I can honestly tell you, I don't know how this awesome fan base survived 21 and 22. And what's even more incredible, and this is why I'm all in favor of the firing. This isn't a personal shot at Canada. This isn't a situation where, he's just this bad guy. Or listen, it sucks for him. It sucks for his family. NFL is a harsh business, but this move had to be made, and frankly should have been made a long time ago by Coach Tomlin. This move was not just made because of the production or lack thereof by the Steelers offense. I truly, to the core of my being, believe that a large reason that Canada was fired and was let go is because of some of the sound bites we heard from Najee Harris. George Pickens was complaining and publicly complaining on social media about not getting the football. Najee Harris had a quote where he said that the record of the team, 6-4, playoffs start today. The Steelers are in. And Mike Tomlin continues that incredible streak of not having a losing record that we all talk about all the time. It's like, on the surface, it's all fine and good. If you just look at, this is why I say you are what your record says you are quote by the great Bill Parcells, sometimes, to use the name of this segment, lacks context. At times, it does. So, that should be taken into account. But Najee Harris said, yeah, you look at our record, we're good in that regard. We're in the playoffs. We could still potentially, maybe, win the AFC North, as loaded the division as that is. But we got to also look at the things behind that. And that's what Najee was alluding to. And he said he was tired of this nonsense. He didn't use the word nonsense. He used something else. But he's tired of it. The Steelers offense is tired of it. There was a crazy video. I shouldn't say crazy, like I can't believe it happened, but I can't believe it was caught on video of after a Steelers win earlier this season, players are walking to the locker room and Matt Canada is seen in the video. This is right as the players are about to turn left to go into their home locker room. Matt Canada is seen hugging Mike Tomlin. Great game. Let's go. Chris Boswell, the kicker, Not the quarterback, not a left tackle or the star receiver. The kicker, Chris Boswell, who, by the way, is automatic. Love Chris Boswell. But he comes from behind them. There's everybody in the Steelers are saying, oh, great win, great win, great win. And Chris Boswell says, yeah, we didn't win because of you. Can guarantee you that. It's like, wow, I can't believe this actually got on camera. I can't believe this is the first time I'd seen this. Listen, maybe it was on the internet a month ago. I don't know what it was, but it is, you start to see dissension and division in the locker room. There started to become questions from the Pittsburgh media, from people like myself saying, dang, is Kenny really the guy? Kenny Pickett really the guy to take the Steelers to the next level? I have my doubts. I do think there are limitations. I've been very, very adamant about that, but there's still some things I like. He's great in the fourth quarter. He has multiple fourth quarter comebacks. But at the same time, he has as many touchdown passes in the last month and a half as Anthony Richardson, who has not played in a month and a half. So that's a little bit of a problem that you got to put on the quarterback and on the OC. And, that's I have a feeling that once the criticism started to shift to Pickett, Mike Tomlin and this is what I love about him, and I think the players love this about him, is about as protective of his players as they come. Antonio Brown, we see all the stuff off the field now. We could say hindsight's 2020, like, oh, I can't believe it was, we would think of him as a viable locker room guy. Well, in Pittsburgh, up until it just got intolerable at the end in 2018, didn't hear the stuff then that you hear about AB now. It's because Mike Tomlin, the Steelers culture, everything is kept in-house. Okay, we're going to settle our disagreements as a family. We're going to solve it as a family, whatever the case may be. The Steelers locker room survived Antonio Brown. Mike Tomlin's the type of dude. You go to his players, you go to his guys, that's a problem. And once the position started to shift to Kenny Pickett, maybe Mike Tomlin, as smart of a head coach as he is, looked at that and like, this ain't on Kenny. Some of it is. I mean, you can't put all the blame on Matt Canada. Some of it is the players got to execute better. But if you're being put in position with crappy offensive plays, not much to execute. Like Dan Orlovsky said it best on ESPN when breaking it down. He said that the Pittsburgh Steelers, he said that they're running plays. Matt Canada was not calling an offense. He was just calling plays. Wasn't scheming guys open. Wasn't a whole lot of creativity to it. I mean, it was crazy where I was hearing, you could see it on the film too, where the Steelers, if they line up in a certain formation, there's not a set amount of plays or set number of plays that you can run out of that formation. If it's this formation, it's this play. Very easy for defensive coordinators to game plan for. When you look at a guy like Jeff Swartz in Cleveland, who's done a great job at the Browns defense, Myles Garrett is having an awesome year. The Browns defenses collectively, they're like, okay, yeah, it's like what it is almost is like the people get up in arms about the Michigan sign stealing scandal. Other teams are stealing signs from Pittsburgh. It's like Pittsburgh literally went to the Browns, went to these other teams and said, hey, here's our play calls. You can, tip ourselves off essentially. So good for the Pittsburgh Steelers, good for Mike Tomlin, and good for Kenny Pickett. This is now the pressure shifts to number 8. If Kenny Pickett fails to perform well in the next however many games left, 7 games left of the regular season, and what I believe to be at least one playoff game. We'll see how far they get. Again, I think there's a ceiling on how far these Steelers can go. We'll see what he gives us. If he plays well, I mean, Josh Allen's on a different level than Kenny Pickett, but Josh Allen had his OC fired, Ken Dorsey, and played pretty well against a great Jets defense last week. That stuff matters, and I have a hard time believing that didn't factor into Mike Tomlin moving on from Matt Canada as well. So, this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, Matt Canada was fired, and I don't want to totally just bash the guy and say good riddance, all this, all that, but it does feel like a new day in Pittsburgh. It does feel like a new day in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to lie to you. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.